Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I'm in this 2017 Bentley Bentayga, which I've borrowed from a friend of mine at ALX Automotive over in Yorkshire. What a privilege it is to drive such a car in such a beautiful part of the world. Anyway, enough of that soppiness. Let's get on to the review. Can I just point out early on that I've never driven or even been in a Bentley Bentayga before, but I've always been intrigued by them, ever since they launched back in 2015, early 2016. When they were launched, they were met with a mixed response. You had lots of people appreciate them, appreciate the craftsmanship, and understand why Bentley did it. It quickly became Bentley's best-selling car, by the way. Then you had the other group of people who thought that it was a revolting, obnoxious car for the newly rich residents of Wilmslow. I have to say, I was in the first group. I love a luxurious four-wheel drive. I love the practicality, I love the visibility, I love the space on offer, and I love the driving position. I've always liked the styling of the Bentley Bentayga, and to be honest, I love the idea of a Bentley SUV. This might sound a bit ridiculous, but I love the fact that it's quite in your face. It's a blatant display of wealth. And in my mind, if you've earned it, why not show it off? If you've got it, flaunt it, I say. I think the front end is very imposing and a little bit obnoxious. Not as much as a Mercedes G-Wagon or a Rolls-Royce Cullinan, but it's along those lines. However, unlike those two, in the right colour, the Bentayga retains an awful lot of class. There's nothing else on the market quite like it. The rear end is quite plain in comparison, and to be fair, I think the rear angle is my least favourite of the whole car. This doesn't feel right. I've just pulled over to let a van go past, and I'm on a very muddy part of the road in a Bentley with a pale interior. It'll wash off, I suppose. Side on, it looks very imposing. Looks like it's going places, like it means business. I love the rear haunches. Just looks very powerful. What a beautiful part of the world this is. This is real England. You often forget these places exist. I think the colour greatly helps with the Bentayga. Something like this coral metallic just smells of money. There's a Bentayga that I see often in the village near me, and it's finished in like a beigey, sandy metallic colour, which I know sounds hideous, but in the flesh it looks really good. You just know that they've chosen that car because they wanted it to match their living room ceiling, and they couldn't care less about the resale value. And I like that. Whilst driving around the footballer hotspots of Oldley Edge and Hale Barnes, I have seen some ghastly examples though. Some finished in matte camo effect and things like that. So be careful when buying your Bentayga. I think the important question to ask is, what colour would Nigel Havers buy? Then you'll have your answer. One thing I've noticed from driving around in this morning, it seems to be looked upon quite favourably. It doesn't feel as though I'm in something vulgar or crass. It still feels very British, but just very upper class British. This is Downton Abbey on wheels. So far everybody's let me out of side junctions, which I'll be honest is a bit of a surprise. I'm not sure they would if I were in a Lamborghini Urus. Whenever I see one in traffic, I always wonder who's driving it, because there aren't many people who could afford such a car. So they have become something of a celebrity magnet. Think what you will about SUVs, but tastes change over time. And at the moment, SUVs are very much in vogue. In years gone by, it used to be all about the saloon car or the hatchback, but now it's all about posh 4x4s. I was worried that this might not feel like a proper Bentley, but it really does. It makes perfect sense for Bentley to jump on the SUV bandwagon, because if you think about everything that a Bentley should be, a large, fast continent crosser, the SUV body shape lends itself to that incredibly well. The Bentayga is based on VW's MLB platform, which is shared with the Lamborghini Urus, the Porsche Cayenne, the Audi Q7, Q8, and the humble VW Touareg. It's easy for people to criticise this car for looking too much like a Touareg or a Q7. I mean, from certain angles I can see the resemblance, but that's where the similarities end. The minute you step inside, you're transported to another world. You can really appreciate the craftsmanship and the effort that's gone into making this thing. Every time I'm in a Bentley, you come away with an overwhelming level of respect for the amount of man-hours gone into making this. The attention to detail is staggering. The interior of the Bentayga is beautiful. I love the shape of the swooping dash. I love all the contrast stitching. Every single item is either made from real wood, leather, or stainless steel. And every single dial is knurled. I keep finding new things and I'm constantly impressed. Trust me, it will leave even the biggest of skeptics speechless. Size-wise, it feels slightly narrower and a little less unwieldy than a full-size Range Rover, but it does feel longer. The extra length isn't really an issue though, thanks to its parking sensors and its crystal clear reverse camera. It's even got park assist, so it'll park itself. It's no surprise really that inside you get lots of space. There's loads of rear legroom. You could be chauffeured around in this car all day, quite happily. This particular Bentayga is a 5-seater, but they did offer it with 7 seats. Now, short of a Gulfstream, I can't think of a more luxurious way of transporting yourself and 6 passengers. In terms of practicality, you'd think this would be every bit as usable as a Range Rover, wouldn't you? Well, it is and it isn't. You see, with a full-size Range Rover like mine, I've got thick rubber mats, so you don't mind getting into it with muddy boots. But in this Bentayga, I wouldn't dream of doing that. It'd be like mowing your lawn in a tuxedo. It just feels wrong. This just feels like a privilege to be in, and as such, you want to treat it with a bit of respect. Whereas with a Range Rover, you get the sense that you can give it a bit of stick. The boot on the Bentayga is a very good size, at around 480 litres. I think it would be better though if the tailgate was a split-opening one like a Range Rover. Engine-wise, there are a few different options to choose from. The flagship is the 6-litre W12, which to me just seems a bit wasteful. It'd be like watering your plants with Evian. Even if you could afford to do it, would you? I'm not sure you would. Sticking with petrol, there's a smaller 4-litre twin-turbo V8, which offers slightly better fuel economy, or a turbo diesel. Can you believe that? A diesel Bentley. But truthfully, that is the pick of the bunch. That's the model I'm in today. It's a 4-litre bi-turbo diesel V8. I'm not a big fan of diesel cars, I never have been, even a decade ago when they were popular. But in a big 4-wheel drive car like this, they still make the most sense. The same is true with the full-size Range Rover. That's why the 4.4-litre diesel V8 is the pick of the bunch. Thankfully, because this is a hand-built Bentley and the carpets are an inch thick, the soundproofing is so good you can barely tell that it's a diesel. You still get the occasional clattery grumble from the engine, but it's not all that noticeable. Because it's an oil burner, it's very economical. So much so, you won't believe the figures I'm about to rattle off. Around town, this will do nearly 30 miles per gallon, and on a motorway run, it'll touch 40, which I think is just incredible for a car of this size and weight. If I were in the market for a Bentayga, I'd definitely choose this 4-litre V8 twin-turbo diesel. It just gives you much better cruising range, so you don't have to stop for fuel as frequently. It just makes the most sense. You can't help but feel like a bit of a show-off in this, but at least by choosing the 4-litre diesel, you're not just throwing money down the drain. In terms of performance, I wrongly assumed that this would be about as powerful as my Range Rover and offer around 330, 340 horsepower, but it doesn't. It offers an extra 100. This produces 430 horsepower, which means it is a proper flying machine. I mean, that's seriously quick. And it can cope with the power remarkably well. There's not much body roll. It remains quite flat through the bends, even when you're pushing on. That wasn't even in sport mode. Let's try it in sport mode. Oh, straight away the throttle response has got better. It just feels relentless. Wow, that's quick. Better slow down there. Well, I'm impressed. Safe to say. That acceleration properly pins you into your seat. That's exactly what a Bentley should be. Powerful, but it doesn't make a song and dance about it. This diesel will do 0 to 60 in around 4.6 seconds, and it will keep going until you reach 170 miles an hour. I must say the 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox does a great job. The changes are seamless, but the kickdowns are so quick and immediate, you barely have time to react. And the actual gear lever itself is beautiful as well. Because it's a Bentley, you'd expect this to be very comfortable, and it is. It's one of the most comfortable cars I've ever driven. It isn't jarring or anything when you go over a bump. Right, we've come to a red light, and you can barely hear the engine running. There is the faint hint that it's a diesel, but it's really quite good. Something else to mention, the steering's a nice weight. It's nice and easy to use, but it isn't overly assisted. You still get a good sense of where the wheels are and what they're up to. There's also very little road noise. You feel like you're cocooned in your own little bubble. It's a nice feeling. It's a sensibly thought out car, this. You get plenty of storage space inside, you get 2 cup holders, you get more space here for your keys or your phone or your wallet. You get a nice comfortable centre armrest with 2 USB points. The door bins are very spacious. It all just makes sense, and the more I drive it, the more I'm falling in love with it. There are a couple of things that I'm not so impressed with, which for a car of this price I think are totally unacceptable. There's no heated steering wheel, which, again, if you're looking at Corsas and Fiestas, it doesn't really matter, does it? But when you're looking at the upper echelons of the car world, it really does matter. And there's also only 1 sun visor. Now on a Range Rover you get 2, which is handy on days like today with this horrendous low winter sun. I also would have quite liked them to put the stereo controls here, like you get in some Audis, rather than here. I know you get them on the steering wheel, but it'd be nice to be able to control the volume from down here without reaching. I know they're silly things, and it might sound like I'm splitting hairs, but in a Bentley, I think it really does matter. Used prices here in the UK start around £85,000. Now that's going to get you a 6-litre W12 with around 60 or 70,000 miles on the clock. This particular car is for sale for £90,000, and there are no two ways about it. That is an awful lot of money. But I was going to try and justify it. I can't really justify a £90,000 used car. But what I will say, if you've got the money, if you can afford it, you won't be disappointed. It feels like a cut above a Range Rover. And coming from me, the world's biggest Range Rover fan, that is quite a big compliment. The Bentayga is as comfortable as a full-size Range Rover, and yet it handles like a Range Rover Sport. It's an incredible feat, that. In terms of reliability, I wouldn't be too scared. Both the engine and the gearbox are tried and tested. And they're very well-built cars, these. If you service them every 12 months or 10,000 miles, you really shouldn't have any issues that you wouldn't have with any other luxury SUV. Servicing costs are fairly reasonable for this kind of car, I should caveat that. Bentley offer fixed price servicing, so an interim service will set you back around £800 and a full service will set you back around £1,200. Again, I know that's a lot of money, but in this world, it's not ruinously expensive, is it? I can't see the Bentayga costing you more to run than a full-size Range Rover, over your average period of ownership anyway. For me though, the Range Rover is the undisputed king of the luxury 4x4 world. It's the car for all seasons. It's a car for all occasions. It looks good everywhere. It still has the ability to impress, but it doesn't rub people up the wrong way. And I think the Bentayga could possibly do that. Another thing, the Range Rover is quite common. You see them everywhere, they don't really stand out. Whereas in the Bentayga, they do stand out, and there's nowhere to hide. Now for some people that might be a good thing if you enjoy the limelight, but for those who don't, it isn't. Well, I think that's about it. I've honestly loved every single minute of using this car. It's majestic, it's a class act. I'd recommend one to anybody. I'd have one in a heartbeat. It feels every bit a true Bentley. This is a Bentley for the 21st century. Saloon cars are dead. Well, thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. I'll leave the link below to LX's website so you can peruse. And don't forget to check out the High Peak store. That's www.highpeakstore.co.uk. Cheers guys. See you next time.